dropping shit at the pilot. Niggas be broken, be sobbing, but still talking shit like they violent. Niggas is broke.
So last night, I uploaded a quick initial reaction video to the Kyrie Irving trade, and I know it wasn't in depth, but I just wanted to give you guys my raw and uncut reaction to the trade, whether it was wrong or right. You know, I just wanted to give you guys a raw reaction. And you know, I was on Twitter following the whole story, giving you guys my thoughts on the trade, and what I saw was a lot of backlash to the Celtics camp and how they lost the trade. I saw this in my comment section as well. The first thing I thought was, what the hell am I gonna do with this clean ass design on bsouls.com, where you can get a free phone case with your first purchase if you click the pinwheel at the bottom left. The second thing I thought was, who really won the trade? But first, let's analyze what the trade was first. In this trade, the Celtics traded Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Ante Zizic, and the 2018 Nets first round draft pick, unprotected, for one Kyrie Irving. Now let's look at the Cavs side first. Tell me 2 years ago that the Cavaliers would trade their second best player, a star point guard in the league, at the age of 25, and I'd laugh. But this, at the end of the day, was the situation for the Cavs prior to the trade. They were the favorites to come out of the East, but they were poised to lose to Golden State once again. They have no financial flexibility, LeBron is not happy, and there's a good chance that he will actually leave Cleveland in the summer of 2018. Meanwhile, Kyrie Irving wants out because he wants his own team and doesn't want to be left hanging in the LeBron leaving Cleveland bond. The Cavs obviously would prefer to keep LeBron, but just in case he leaves, they need a backup plan. They need a middle ground of retooling to win this year and preparing for the future. And since Kyrie Irving wants out, the Cavs need to change something in the organization, and he provides the most trade value. They called Boston, got Isaiah Thomas, a guy who can easily replace Kyrie's role in Cleveland, Jay Crowder, a guy who can stretch the floor, guard wings on the perimeter, and play small ball forward, and help LeBron and the Cavs combat the Warriors' small ball lineup. Ante Zizic, a young big man with potential in the future, and the 2018 Nets pick unprotected. A pick that's projected to be a high draft pick in next year's draft. And now this creates another option for the Cavs, where they could trade Kevin Love and the Nets pick for another star. Dare I say, DeMarcus Cousins? They got exactly what they wanted, and I think it was a win on their part. But there's a couple of problems I have with this trade for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Isaiah Thomas is arguably not even better than Kyrie, and even if he is, we're literally splitting hairs here. And although his hip did not need surgery, is it really just a coincidence that on the first day we heard the Kyrie Irving trade rumors, we also heard the Celtics announce that Isaiah Thomas does not need hip surgery? Maybe it was a move to put out that Isaiah is fully healthy and ready to go, and maybe it was. But it was also probably a move so that teams like Cleveland wouldn't be afraid to trade for Isaiah Thomas. And even if he is fine, Isaiah Thomas is on an expiring contract. Let's say LeBron stays. Are they really gonna pay Isaiah Thomas the max when they already were mad about paying the money that they did prior to the Kyrie trade? And at the end of the day, they still aren't beating Golden State, and IT's getting older. So are they really gonna pay IT the max unless they actually win the championship this year? Jay Crowder, however, is a nice piece for them. You know, I'm not taking anything away. He's on a great contract. He can play the small ball four. He's perfect for their system. The Nets pick, however, is probably the most valuable asset they got because they need all the talent they can get, and whether they're going to rebuild or still retool around LeBron, let's say he stays, that top 10 pick could be a free role player the Cavs could add, not only to prepare for the future post LeBron, but to also help them meanwhile as a pretty important role player. With this trade, the Cavs definitely are still the favorite to come out of the East this year, but what does that mean if the gap between you and Golden State is essentially still the same? Really, the best part about this trade was that Nets pick. But even with the negatives I said, this trade was probably the best the Cavs could get for Kyrie. And now the Celtics. While the Celtics did not need to trade as much as the Cavs did, I still think this was a great trade for the Celtics as well. I think just PR-wise, people can and should stop with the whole Ainge just stingy with his picks. The whole, the Celtics overvalue their assets. The whole, the Celtics have too many forwards news. Because all those three were covered in this trade. But like with the Cavs, let's go over why they would trade these guys in the first place. Isaiah Thomas, like I said, is 28, going to be 29 at the end of next season. on an expiring contract and he wants the max. There's also still some concern for his hip injury. And yes, I've been on record saying that Isaiah Thomas can be the point guard and a star player on a championship team, but I've never said he can be the best player on a championship team. Nonetheless, a 30 to 32-year-old version of himself. Jay Crowder, although a very solid player for the Celtics and on a great contract, like everyone has been saying and making jokes about the past month, the Celtics do have too many forwards. They just got Gordon Hayward. They got Jason Tatum in the draft. Although Jaylen Brown can and does play shooting guard, he still counts as a forward. They also got Marcus Morris. They just signed Semi Ojeleye, who also has shown some promises. Added to the fact that Jay Crowder does underperform in the playoffs, and the whole beef between Jay Crowder and Gordon Hayward, I don't mind letting go of Jay Crowder because of the backup options we have and his replacements. And now the Nets pick. I know, I would have liked some kind of protection on it, and I know it's going to be still a high draft pick. But a misconception I keep on hearing is the Celtics just gave the Cavs Michael Porter Jr. or Marvin Bagley. First of all, there's a couple of teams that, in my opinion, can have a worse record than the Nets. Not necessarily are they worse franchises than the Nets, or that they have less of a future than the Nets, but that Nets pick and what the Cavs get, the only thing that matters is what the Nets record would be this season in comparison to other teams. And me personally, I think the Bulls will have a worse record after losing Jimmy Butler and finally committing to a full rebuild. The Hawks as well after losing Paul Millsap and Dwight Howard without really making any acquisitions this offseason. Also, I think the Suns, although they have a bright future, I don't think anyone besides Booker is taking a leap next year, added to the fact that they are in the West. The Lakers could either break out this year or still stay at the bottom of the conference. The Pacers as well, now that they don't have Paul George and Jeff Teague, are definitely rebuilding. So they might have a worse record than the Nets. The Knicks, well, they're the Knicks. Meanwhile, the Nets added D'Angelo Russell, DeMarre Carroll, Allen Crabbe, and Jeremy Lin is coming back healthy. And the Nets really don't have an incentive to tank because they don't have any of their picks. Added to the fact that they are in the East, the Nets pick really isn't as valuable as people make it out to be. Nonetheless, people saying the Celtics just gave the Cavs Michael Porter Jr. or Marvin Bagley. But regardless, it still was a valuable pick. But in terms of future assets, the reason I don't feel bad about it is the same reason I don't feel bad about giving up Jay Crowder. It's not because Jay Crowder and the Nets pick isn't valuable to the Celtics, it's because it doesn't really deteriorate their plans because of the backup options that they have, which is the beauty of having the treasure chest of assets that they have. The Celtics still kept Jaylen Brown, they still kept Jason Tatum, they still have the Lakers pick, they still have their own pick for the next 2 years. They still have the Clippers lottery protected pick in 2019. They still have the Grizzlies top 8 protected pick in 2019. So as far as the long-term plan, they still have a lot. And speaking of the assets, speaking of those assets I just named, if those guys in New Orleans call up and they're like, you know what, we give in. We can't win with AD. We want the most value for AD right now. Do not be surprised if the Celtics are still one of the top runners for Anthony Davis or DeMarcus Cousins. And for all of this that they gave up, the 2018 Nets pick, which I just said isn't as valuable as they make it out to be, and the fact that they still have a lot of picks in the back end that it doesn't really hurt them that much. And Jay Crowder, again, still a solid player, but I don't mind letting go of him because they do have a lot of forwards. They got Kyrie Irving, a 25-year-old point guard who you can argue is better than Isaiah Thomas right now. And I don't want to hear the biased comments because I've been on record saying Kyrie Irving is better than IT. So stop with that nonsense. And if you look at the regular season last year as a second option, Kyrie was still arguably better than IT. And in the playoffs, it goes even more in favor of Kyrie. Now, I know IT was injured during the last series, and he did have to play through some unimaginable circumstances. Rest in peace, China. But even if we look at the year before, it's the same case. And I know IT didn't have help, and Kyrie did. But guess what? When Kyrie Irving comes to Boston, it's not like he's going to be surrounded by scrubs. He will have help. He will have Gordon Hayward. So I don't really get that point either. And he's under contract for 3 years, the last one being a player option. And at least when he does ask for a max, the guy's only going to be 27 years old in his prime. And to me, the biggest part about this trade is the timeline. This team is not built to win the finals this year. And to me, I still had the Cavs winning against them in a playoff series. But at the end of the day, their timeline as to when they want to go all in does not correspond with Isaiah Thomas's want, age, and need, and the same goes for Jay Crowder. Meanwhile, Kyrie's does. But I think to me, the trade is justifiable for both sides. No team lost, but both teams won. It's just Cleveland won more, but that doesn't mean the Celtics lost the trade. But with that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and I am out. Peace.